Hey, Foot Clan. Today's show is brought to you by FantasyChamps.com. Do you need a fantasy football championship ring?
Of course you do.
Maybe a silver fantasy football trophy or a golden fantasy football trophy or
You know it.
crystal fantasy football trophy. They got it all at FantasyChamps.com. We just decked out our league of record. Every former champion, we got him a gems or a stainless ring from FantasyChamps.com with a glass case and an engraving. It's beautiful. Check it out. You'll love it. FantasyChamps.com.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, coming to you from the Play Draft Studios with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Yeah, it's Tuesday.
Waiver Day.
It's Tuesday, September 19th.
Should really be a weekly holiday for all businesses.
Oh, you get the day off?
Yeah, it's Waiver Day.
Well, at least the morning.
Just to handle the bids?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
if you're in a lot of leagues, it takes some time to set all these waivers.
Take some time to do it right. Now, see, some people want to wave goodbye to last week.
Sorry.
But we'll be getting into the waivers on today's show, the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Mike can't contain the music.
Never. It's in my heart.
All right, hey, look, last night there was some football. And
Kinda.
seven straight
One team had some football.
7 straight games for the Giants now without 20 points. 7 consecutive games for a quote-unquote great and a magnificent offense with all the weapons in the world, Odell Beckham Jr. and Marshall and Ingram, and no running backs.
Well, no offensive line. I mean, Smash Jackson. I'm not going to completely give him a pass on this one, but he has for what his ability is, he has no chance.
Le'Veon Bell could not succeed if he was the running back for the New York Giants. I mean, when they snap the ball, I feel so bad for Eli Manning, who's just like, please, someone get open quick because there's like 3 guys smashing my face every single play.
When he took the hit, I know he got the ball off, but the hit where the defender just landed on his face.
Yeah.
I mean, for all the things you can say about Eli Manning, the man is indestructible. I mean, he's like Super Dave Osborne. You beat him up, but he keeps on playing. Keeps on playing.
Matthew Stafford looking great once again.
Well,
Yeah,
good.
I thought he
I'll
was.
go with
He
good.
is much more of a quarterback than he's ever been.
Okay,
I
I thought you were talking about like for fantasy
No,
purposes.
who's fine for fantasy purposes.
Yeah.
Fine to
2 touchdowns.
Two
helps.
touchdowns
Yeah,
saves
the
the day.
yardage wasn't there.
No, the yardage wasn't there at all, but you didn't need it. And as a quarterback, they're 2-0. They
Yes.
took out the Cardinals and the Giants. And Marvin Jones, once again, this is one of the reasons we said, look, Marvin Jones is probably still the guy to own if you need reliable fantasy production versus Kenny Golladay, despite the smooth routes.
Oh, they're so smooth, but they were
One catch.
heard some miscues, some bad notes, and he couldn't smooth them into the jazz.
Oh, man, I watched the movie Whiplash last night. Have you seen that yet?
It's not my tempo.
Yeah,
it's not my tempo.
not my tempo. Goodness gracious. Yeah, you bring up the music, and that is a very anxiety-inducing movie.
I have some very hot takes on that movie, but that's for another show.
Really? Do you?
Different podcast.
All right, I think the tight ends were a highlight from last night.
Absolutely. If you were initialed EE, you had a great game. Both of these guys, I mean, this is a waiver day. Both these guys are worthy of picking up off of the waivers, the way that they were used, and the talent that each of them have. Man, I feel so good about my Eric Ebron and Kobe Fleener. I've gotten so much grief from last year, the love I gave them.
Be very careful what
I
comes
know
out
this
of
is going
your
to be
mouth
brief.
right now.
This is going to be a brief moment in the sun. It's like where is that? When you're in Alaska and you get a little bit of the sun
Yeah,
for
just
the year
for an hour a
yeah,
day.
it's like, ooh, that was fun.
Yeah, enjoy week 2 on those two. But look, you're right so far.
Yeah, so far.
Follow us on Twitter at the FF Ballers. Look, we invite you to come check out jointhefoot.com, our fantasy football community. There are over 4,000 fantasy football players who love to play fantasy football. They're in leagues together. They answer waiver questions, trade questions.
They're good peoples, too.
Yeah, they're very good people.
If they listen to this show, that makes them good peoples.
Is that how it works?
Yeah, for sure.
Can you actually, in a court of law, if you've committed a crime, can you
absolutely
show your subscriptions?
Your Honor, I'm a member of the Foot. It's basically like Fight Club, though, because there's a good chance that the judge.
I was saying the judge is gonna wink and be like, right. I don't know what you're talking about. Case dismissed.
Case dismissed. All right, let's go ahead and get into the news.
News and notes from around the league.
Andrew Luck has been ruled out of Week 3 against the Browns.
What are you doing with Andrew Luck, Andy? You're the resident Andrew Luck guy on the show this year.
You ever heard the term pot committed?
I have. Is that where we are?
Sure.
I think that is where you – I mean, pot committed is actually a really good analogy. You invested in him. You've waited this long. I think you have – I mean, you're pot committed to waiting for him to come back.
Yeah, I don't think much has changed. I mean, because he's still out.
Yeah, just saying. I mean, to already be ruled out for Week 3, which
he's got to
for fantasy
practice.
Players, that's nice. But yeah, when is Andrew Luck coming back? Is there any
Carson Wentz is in the corner winking at you, just saying, "Hey."
They said that
I'll give you your Andrew Luck right here.
Yeah, they said a couple weeks ago he was probably not going to play until October. So I think they're going to stick to that. And that's why they're able to rule him out early right now. They're saying October's the new September. That's what they're saying.
There you go. Sam Bradford's believed to have a bone bruise. Vikings will reevaluate after seeing how he responds to an injection. So Dr. Feelgood's coming in there. Do you think he'll play this week?
Man, I've seen things all over the place, and I'm talking like not just people pretending to be doctors, actual doctors on Twitter. Weighing in on this, saying, I mean, this could be potentially really bad, like a multiple week type of situation. So if you were depending on Sam Bradford, you need to position yourself in an aggressive manner to be without him. Like if you're in a 2-quarterback league, hopefully you grab that third quarterback and he can fill in for you. It's in the meantime. It's going to be a downgrade for Diggs. It's going to be a downgrade for Thielen, for Rudolph if Case Keenum continues. I mean, just from what I have read from actual trusted doctors on Twitter, I mean, if we get into a situation a month from now and they're saying, hey, we think that Teddy Bridgewater is going to be our starting quarterback, that won't shock me if that happens.
It's crazy.
Yes,
but I'm glad you brought up the 2-quarterback situation because there are a lot of people in those league formats that are trying to make decisions on the waiver wire this week.
You need to help your situation.
Okay. Randall Cobb's MRI came back negative on his shoulder. Jordy Nelson is 50-50 for Week 3. So you got to monitor both of those players. If both miss the game, is there an advantageous pickup this week? Is it Martellus Bennett? Is it Geronimo Allison? I mean, probably not. I mean, 11 targets last week for Bennett when these two missed some time.
I'd say Bennett gets the target upgrade. I mean, he was forcing the ball to, and even Richard Rodgers.
Yeah,
I mean, they were out of options on Sunday night.
Terrance West dealing with a soft tissue injury day to day. Basically, Terrance West, this could have been why the snap count was so incredibly disproportionate.
I would say it is why.
Yeah,
right. Which is good news for West in the sense that he's not losing the role and, Buck Allen isn't just taking over.
All right. Jimmy Graham's now questionable for Week 3, ankle injury.
Ooh. Yeah, it was weird because on that play it seemed like he hurt his knee, and then afterwards it was an ankle. The earliest reports on it have not looked good, already talking about him missing Week 3.
Here's the problem with Jimmy Graham. You had 2 terrible weeks. Now you have a potential questionable situation. He hasn't produced. The offense has been bad. The offensive line has been bad. He's banged up. And you have a number of names, Ebron, Ingram,
Fleener.
Witten,
The nice thing is that if let's say you lost Olsen,
but do you drop
worried
it?
about Jimmy
That's the
Graham?
point.
Okay.
That's my question is, do you drop Jimmy Graham to go get one of these other players, and can you depend on them?
Yeah, I was talking to Mike about this yesterday in the office just as a, man, do you drop Jimmy Graham? And I realized if someone else dropped Jimmy Graham, I would pick him up. So that means I wouldn't drop him, but it's a completely team-dependent thing because if you're in a situation where, you have another injury or you need to pick a guy up, there's someone valuable on waivers, you don't have a great player to cut, then yes, absolutely, you can cut Jimmy Graham. But I would, in this situation, probably be rostering 2 tight ends.
I want to give you some of the day-to-day injury news. DeMarco Murray, Terrance West, Rob Gronkowski, Jordan Reed, Rob Kelly, Randall Cobb, Corey Davis. Circling back to Rob Kelly, I have not seen a bit of an update. The last time Gruden talked about it, they said that they believed he had a fractured rib. Do we have any update as to his timetable?
I've heard that the rib is not fractured. This is a cartilage issue. So it's feasible that he suits up and plays for week 3, but like Jordy Nelson, I mean, I would put this at about 50-50. You need to be prepared for him to not play for you.
Gruden come out and talk about Chris Thompson and how they have to be careful with Chris Thompson. They don't want to give him very many reps. They'd like to increase his role a little bit. It seemed like that was in the context of not having Rob Kelly.
Yeah.
Because they were asking basically, look, if you don't have him, what are you going to do with Chris Thompson? So
that's why P. Ryan's on the waivers, or in the waiver show.
Yeah, and we're moving on. We're talking waivers right now.
Put me in, coach.
All right, let's start at the wide receiver position. John Brown, likely to miss this week. Basically, I think Bruce Arians said, quote, it'd have to be a miracle for him to play. J.J. Nelson.
Yeah.
Barely owned in either ESPN or Yahoo leagues. 5 for 120 and a touchdown on 7 targets. Has Dallas, San Francisco, Philly the next 3 games. Not very intimidating. Certainly the next 2.
No, they're great.
Great pickup?
Great pickup. Great play. I mean, when you sometimes you're picking these guys up because there's reason to believe they can develop into something. But at the wide receiver position, I don't want to hold developmental players. I want to pick a guy up and put him in my lineup if I'm grabbing a wide receiver. That's what you have here in J.J. Nelson. He will be a good starting option, whether it's in a flex or even in the wide receiver position. I mean, you're talking a guy with the upside to finish as a wide receiver 1 in a given week, and the likelihood is that he'll be above that wide receiver 3 range. So J.J. Nelson is, I think, a really good pickup.
By the way, we will have our streaming quarterback picks on today's show after the waivers section, so pay attention for that. Here's a name that you might not even know. He is basically unowned everywhere, and yet went 7 for 95 on 11 targets last week, and that is Rashard Higgins, Cleveland Brown wide receiver.
Yep.
Just called up from the practice squad last week, ends up leading the team in targets. Corey Coleman has a broken hand.
I've heard it's hard to catch a ball with a broken hand.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know if you had to speak on that because of the thumb versus hand.
Did they?
I stand by my argument.
Every report has said he broke his hand again, like last year.
Yeah.
And
Andy,
also your hand includes your thumb.
No, the reason that those reports are actually saying that is because that's what happened. He broke his hand.
Yeah, he didn't break his thumb.
Okay.
Well,
he broke it. I thought he broke his thumb last year.
You could break a thumb and break a hand.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. They would be considered 2 different injuries for me. That was all my only point.
They're the same injury, but they're 2 different?
No, I've broken my thumb, but I didn't go around, hey, guys, I broke my hand. No, I broke my thumb.
The base of the thumb, though, is like right in the – all right, we'll move on. Cooper Kupp, Kenny Golladay, Alan Hearns.
And by the way, if you had the Ultimate Draft kit, so you're well aware of Matt Harmon from NFL.com, his reception perception. He had written up, he loves Rashard Higgins. He loves the player, great wide receiver. So he's actually getting an opportunity now. And that's the basis of the reception perception is looking at these receivers, see who's actually talented, and when they get an opportunity, they can succeed. And he succeeded in a big way. So I think he is a very high priority pickup if you're wide receiver needy.
Yeah, that's a great point. And you want a player with some upside. And, there are certain players, Alan Hearns, 6 for 82 and a touchdown this past week, but now you have reports of another quarterback being called up in Jacksonville. The potential down the line, if things go south for Bortles, you could have Bortles as a healthy scratch and those other 2 quarterbacks active. I feel like if you had to choose between Higgins and taking a flyer on a guy versus Hearns, who do you take?
I would probably take right now, I would take Higgins or J.J. Nelson ahead of Hearns.
That's what I would do as well.
It was pretty much based on what I said a minute ago, where at wide receiver, I don't really like picking up a guy who's developmental. Alan Hearns this week goes up against Baltimore. We've been talking all this season about what an incredible defense they have. I don't think Jacksonville is going to really, Allen Hurns is going to break through their cornerbacks. So my point is I wouldn't start him.
Let me ask you this.
If I'm not
but he gets the Jets in 2 weeks.
Yes, that's true, and that's when I will pick him up because I think he'll still be there.
Let me ask you this. So for a guy like J.J. Nelson, let's say the top wide receiver on this list, what is the fab percentage you'd spend on J.J. Nelson or Higgins? I would be trying to get a bargain on those guys at 5%.
Yeah, so would I.
5%.
I'm okay missing. I've said Higgins is a priority, but I'm also okay missing out on them. I'm not going to overpay. So, 10%.
Tyler Lockett caught 6 passes for 64 yards on 9 targets. My advice on Tyler Lockett is ignore him 100%.
And I completely disagree.
You have to ignore him. We can debate this right now. Paul Richardson scored the touchdown. Doug Baldwin had a bunch of receptions.
Yes, Baldwin. I won't argue versus
You are
Baldwin.
playing rando roulette with this offense with Tyler Lockett. 6 for 64 isn't even a great fantasy day, and so this is ideal situation for Lockett over the last 2 years. Why pick him up after one game? Why be so reactionary?
Well, because of a lot of reasons. 2 of them are named Jimmy Graham, who is currently injured, and another one is Paul Richardson.
Wait, 2 reasons are Jimmy Graham?
One is Jimmy Graham, and one is Paul Richardson. Those 2 reasons. Richardson, he got a broken ring finger, so he's hurt. And then you have Jimmy Graham, who might miss this week, and you have Tyler Lockett, who has always been a talented player. He has finished for fantasy purposes as, a top 5 wide receiver a few times.
On a weekly basis.
What are you talking about?
On a week.
Yeah, he's had
Tyler
several
Lockett's
times.
He's had a week where he's finished top 5 2 years ago, and that's the reason to pick him up now?
Last year.
This is very anecdotal. Bring me some actual numbers.
Okay, here's some numbers.
I just did.
Target share, the exact same as Doug Baldwin this week. Had more yardage than Doug Baldwin this week. I know Richardson got the touchdown, but Richardson's he's a sub 50% snap player now because Tyler Lockett is the 2. Coach Carroll said he is the 2. He's going to get improved snaps this week. He did, and the target share is there, 23% of targets.
So what are you spending on Tyler Lockett? And is he at the top of this list?
No, he's lumped in with them. But
yeah, I would rather
Jermaine
start
Kearse or
J.J.
Tyler
Nelson.
Lockett.
Tyler Lockett.
Jermaine Kearse is 2 touchdowns this week, 4 for 64 on 5 targets, scored last week.
It's probably Kearse, but not by a lot.
At least Kearse is the number 1 option.
That's the only reason.
I said before the show, this is a really good week for wide receivers on the waivers. It's not that strong a week for running backs at all. So yeah, just since you said bring me numbers, last season towards the end of the year, once Tyler Lockett got back on the field in weeks 13 and 15, both weeks he was the number 2 wide receiver in fantasy football. So he can get it done.
All right, running backs. Let's talk about Buck Allen, still out there on the waiver wire, probably most overlooked due to Tariq Cohen's explosion in week 1 and people who invested less fab money or their waiver priority on Buck Allen were rewarded to the tune of 14 carries for 66 yards, 5 for 35, and a touchdown through the air on 6 targets. So Javorius Allen has Jacksonville, Pittsburgh, Oakland coming up. Pick him up. You need to pick 100%. Up anybody that can be a starting running back. I tweeted this past week, look, finding running backs is hard because you've got the injury concerns, you've got all of those issues. So Buck Allen, Chris Carson, Samaje Perine, they are at the top of my list this week. What do you guys think about the running back situation?
Yeah, those are the 3 that stick out to me, and I would order them in that order. I'd like Buck Allen first, Chris Carson second, Samaje Perine third. Now, if news comes out that Rob Kelly is going to miss a few weeks, Samaje would be much more important to me in that.
Yeah, you're taking the longer-term value in Buck and in Carson.
So for Buck Allen, are you talking you would go 20+% of your fab, or would you jump into the 30s?
I think I'd be in the 20s. I'd probably drop 25 on Buck Allen to make sure that he's still a guy that I don't know if he's going to be an entire season long value because Woodhead is still supposed to come back after 8 weeks, get off the IR.
That's a long enough run, though.
I completely agree. I completely agree. I mean, that's why I'm dropping 25, 26. Whatever it's going to take to get him for the next 2 months, he'll be valuable over that time.
All right, Alvin Kamara is still out there, but what's the real value in that three-headed mess in New Orleans?
Well, I still think he is a value because of his pass catching. Whenever you're on an offense that usually scores, up at the top of the league, and to be honest, we haven't seen that so far from the Saints. They've kind of by the end of the game been all right. Drew Brees has garbage timed his first 2 weeks to fantasy relevance, but it hasn't been the high-powered Saints offense that you're used to. Some of that can be said, matchup. Usually the Patriots are a very hard team to play, and week 1 was the Minnesota defense. So I think what you've seen is kind of a good utilization from a talented player into very difficult matchups. If you kind of mix those things together and sprinkle in a little dose of optimism, you can go, hey, maybe Kamara can be something good.
Carolina, Miami, and then a bye.
It's not Carolina. That's
Carolina
sounding pretty tough.
Yeah. He's probably not going to do much on the bye, though.
I completely agree.
That's a very fair point.
Or Carolina. So it's not looking great.
So clearly far more owned than the guys we've already really been talking about. But Derrick Henry, where does he rank in your priority list? I mean, Yahoo, he's probably owned. He's 77%. ESPN's only 67%.
If he's there.
Is he the top of your list? Or is he?
He's not the top of my list.
Okay. He is absolutely the top of my list.
Over Buck Allen.
Yeah, I would spend like 50 on Henry.
That is once again a point of disagreement here on the show.
Just because of what Henry can become. I mean, Henry's a league. If you were able to get him off of waivers and Murray is going to miss time and Henry takes over, just saying things that could happen.
Don't you have that situation with P. Ryan where you have just the same amount of opportunity to take over?
I don't think P. Ryan's taking Rob Kelly's job.
No, but I don't think that DeMarco Murray is losing his job.
That's it's fair. Just a matter of the hamstring, right? Because he hurt his hamstring. Right. No. Well, the difference is I think Derrick Henry is I said this before the season. I think he is like a top 5 talent in actual running back. I think he's much more talented than Samaje Perine as a player. And should he get that job, he would be, like Mike's saying, a league winner. But is DeMarco fine? Is he going to be back, next week and not have any hamstring issue? Whenever I see a re-injury of a hamstring from training camp, those I have a hard time believing that it's just not going to pop up again,
right?
And all of a sudden it's going to disappear, because I feel like those never disappear, at least in the middle of a single season.
Seattle and Houston the next 2 weeks. So let's say DeMarco Murray misses those games. How valuable is Derrick Henry going to be before DeMarco even comes back?
I would if DeMarco Murray's out and Henry is the starter versus Seattle versus Houston, he will still more than likely be in my top 12.
Yeah, I would.
Mike, how much would you spend on Henry?
I mean, I'm more aligned with Jason that if he happens to be on the waivers, I would be very, very aggressive trying to pick him up, and I would rather have him over Buck, just because, I mean, you got to play to win, and Henry changes things if the circumstances change in Tennessee.
All right, a lot of handcuffs that are out there as well. Before we talk about that, I want to thank today's sponsor, Sonos, and actually I have been excited for this read coming up for a while because I replaced my sound system, which was a television. that was my sound system, just the TV speakers. And I felt like we were deaf, and we always had to crank it up so loud. And then we got the play bass from Sonos, and immediately we got the 2 portable wireless speakers and the play bass, and it was so easy to set up, and the sound was incredible, and I was so happy. But then something happened. Then my kids went and stayed at the grandparents', and I was able to crank it up, and I had no idea how loud it could. I mean, I felt like I was in a movie theater. I felt like my neighbors were going to call the cops. It was great. So right now, if you want to check out what Sonos is offering, Sonos is offering listeners of the Fantasy Footballers 10% off any one order under $2,500 or less at Sonos.com. It's only available for a limited time, can't be combined with other discounts or promotions. So just use the promo code FOOTBALLERS10. FOOTBALLERS10 at Sonos.com to receive this exclusive offer.
Want to thank Pristine Auction for sponsoring the show. Ladies and gentlemen,
boys and girls of all ages,
the best sports memorabilia site of all time. It's where we get our authentically signed gear. And I never worry about a signature from Pristine Auction. You know, I still get the DMs every once in a while like, Mike, are you sure? Are you sure that the player signed it? I am sure, because they use the best authenticators in the business. We know the guys who run the business, and we know that they are good people over there, and they're running a great business. And because it's an auction system, and we're talking dailies, like there's new stuff every day. You get in there, these prices, you wouldn't believe what you could do to decorate your house with these things. And we all know that whenever I talk about Pristine Auction, I check them out. So the bids are flying in. Gentlemen, you've put this on yourself, so you have no one to blame. but
what happened?
If you want to get in there and try and outbid me, it's Pristine Auction, PRISTINE auction.com. Make a completely free account. Let them know the Fantasy Footballers sent you.
All right, I'm going to stay at the running backs because I want to talk about Chris Thompson. I also want to talk about Deonta Foreman. I think those are two very applicable names. They need to get picked up. We need to see what happens in Houston,
yes,
with Lamar Miller. So Deonta Foreman needs to get picked up. He's only owned in 5% of ESPN leagues right now. You also need to be picking up Chris Thompson in the event that Rob Kelly misses some time. Now, Jay Gruden said he has to be careful with Thompson, so he's not the biggest guy in the world. They don't want him to get 20, 25 carries, but they're going to try to expand his role a little bit because of the big plays that you've seen from Chris Thompson.
The free name I want to just throw out is Alex Collins. He was brought up for the Ravens. Jeremy Langford was released. Alex Collins replaced him. And if Terrance West is going to miss time, I mean, last week Alex Collins got some play.
I think 8 carries, was it?
I believe 7. But he's likely going to be completely under the radar in your league. And I'm talking like a $0 or $2 bid. Grab Collins. Maybe West is more injured than they've let on, and Alex Collins becomes a 2-down back for this team like West. So he's absolutely worth a free stash if you got the spot.
Are you investing in P. Ryan or Thompson?
P. Ryan.
P. Ryan.
One other name I need to bring up, Chris Johnson. Arizona Cardinals
yes,
for starting running back potentially now. Kerwin Williams was terrible. Chris Johnson was by far the best runner on that team last week, which isn't saying a lot. But, look, if it's his job and this offense can get rolling a little bit, look, you're just talking goal line chances. You're talking starting running back. There's nothing that I can say about Chris Johnson that I wouldn't say about Terrance West if he were healthy. Agreed?
Agreed. I mean, I think you'd rather have that opportunity than, like, okay, Paul Perkins. Well,
yeah, no thanks.
Like, I don't want
thank you.
You know, it's like some of these guys. It's like, do you actually keep them on your roster?
Say, are you guys on board with me? I would drop Paul Perkins.
I'm package trading him.
Someone tried to trade him to me this morning for a 3rd-round pick.
Jason,
I said I wouldn't even trade an 8 for him.
There's
right now.
no way you're able to trade Paul Perkins.
I feel like I can't cut Paul Perkins.
What about Smash Jackson? Can you trade Smash Jackson?
But I don't want Paul Perkins on my team at all.
He's a complete waste of time. Shane Vereen is an actual ownable asset who catches the ball. He had 6 carries yesterday.
Here's the problem with Paul Perkins on your bench. You're going to run into bye weeks and go, he's a starting running back for the Giants. I can plug him in. No, you can't.
And no, he's not. That's
Right.
not what he really is. Paul Perkins is living 100% on rosters right now because of the offseason hype, hope, and dreams. That's the only reason he's on a roster. If he were just out there accumulating statistics and in week 2 you said, wow, this guy's getting some snaps, you would not sign him.
And
otherwise, Orleans Darkwa would be signed.
I was going to say Orleans Darkwa looked better to me than Paul Perkins last night.
I'm dropping him.
It's very nice that we now agree on one thing.
Drop Paul Perkins.
I can promise I'm not trying to disagree with you guys on today's show.
Punt Paul Perkins.
Tight ends. Lots to talk
There
about.
are a lot of them.
Ben Watson had a surprise week, 8 for 91. Austin Seferian-Jenkins comes off of the suspended list in need of pass catchers in the New York Jets wide receiving core.
Yeah, like we said, Jermaine Kearse is a pickup.
Kobe Fleener did catch a touchdown, 3 for 33, and then
Brooks, just to update you on the Kobe Fleener watch, currently tight end number 4. He's in that top 5.
On pace for 16 touchdowns.
Hey, Evan Ingram right now, a top 10 tight end, 4 for 49 and a touchdown.
And the number 1 tight end in all of fantasy football is still available on at least 20 to 35% of leagues, which is Jason Witten.
That is
20
bananas.
Did you say 10 to 35% of leagues?
No, I don't think. 25 to 30%.
Oh, 25 to 30. I thought you were giving me one of those Sam Bradford is fine gaps.
Fine. He's
going to miss
available,
1 to 60 games.
He's available in 5 to 82% of leagues.
So Jason Witten is actually a target for me.
I don't blame you. I mean, he is an integral piece to the offense. Dak looks his way, and he's as old reliable as it gets.
The nice thing, let's say you're Greg Olsen. I had kind of mentioned this. There's a lot of guys, but
Wait, you're Greg Olsen himself?
No. If you have lost Greg Olsen from your fantasy team, there are so many guys here, and I don't know. Do you guys have one here who you're just like, wow, he is the absolute standout guy of this list, of this tight end list?
There's only one guy that is a standout guy to me, and that's Hunter Henry.
Okay.
Outside of Hunter Henry, and I know you hate Hunter Henry.
No,
He's ruined you emotionally.
He has to be picked up. I'm bandaging the wounds and admitting that Hunter Henry has to be picked up, but I don't like him.
Yeah, so
he has personally offended me.
Outside of him, though, I mean, there's so many guys I like. We've named most of them, but they're all worthy. They're all good. So I would put free bids in all of them.
That's where I was going,
and just order them the way that I prefer this week's matchup. Who I would want to start. And if you're out there and you go, man, I really have a good feeling about one of these guys, then pay $1 or $2, bump it up. But you don't need to spend for most of these tight ends.
100% right. Okay,
did we list them all? Because there was Fleener.
Zach Miller had 6 catches. Jack Doyle had 8 catches this week on 8 targets. You had 13 targets for Witten, which we've just brought up, and then you have Ebron 5 for 42 and a touchdown last night. This is kind of. The problem is if you chase points at tight end, you get burnt a lot of the time. That's
true.
That's why we like locking in on certain players. That's why I like Witten as my number 1 target, because I feel like you've got the track record, you've got the reliability, you have Dez Bryant going up against a number of very talented cornerbacks this year, and when it's not working for Dez, because even though Dez produced for fantasy owners, he did not produce for the Cowboys. 7 catches on 15 targets. It wasn't efficient to pass it his way. It was very efficient to pass it Jason Witten's way, 10 catches on 13 targets. And if this defense cannot hold up, you may have what looks like a lot of these game scripts that you saw this past week. Mind you, that was Denver. So,
well, and you might be afraid of the Arizona Cardinals matchup because last year they were very good against tight end. Week 1 they were as well. But we just mentioned Jack Doyle had 8 targets, 8 receptions. That I think. That shows that the Arizona Cardinals defense can be beat by the tight end position this year.
Wasn't that the stat from this past week, though? Didn't Jack Doyle, what did he do in the first week against Arizona? Because they didn't. Yeah, that was this week. I was already moving ahead.
You already lost in the warp.
I was trying not to remember that win. Yeah, for the Arizona Cardinals. Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries. I just assumed I was wrong. This is usually, nope. I'm like, oh, what do I do now?
I had no idea who was wrong.
All right. Carson Wentz is a potential target at the quarterback position after 2 great weeks. We are going to talk about our quarterback streamers, so we'll get into some other names there. And then defenses. We want you to be aware of the impact of the defense.
There's some juicy ones.
The Ravens are currently the number 1 defense in football, and they play Jacksonville, which is delicious. So in ESPN leagues, they're only owned in 50% based on our data, so I'd pick them up. The Rams, son of bum himself, takes on the 49ers.
Yeah, that's a good play.
That's always good.
Dolphins take on the Jets.
They're an auto start. I mean,
and they're available everywhere.
Patriots have Houston. That should be a monster play.
Yeah, not so widely owned, though.
That's why the Patriots are still owned. People are waiting for this week. Bucks, they take on the Vikings after a very, very good week against Chicago. This is the watch whether Sam Bradford's in there or not.
Hey, yeah, absolutely. But the Bucs are a strong defense. I mean, they finished last year very strong, come out the gates smoking hot against Mike Glennon. So if it's Case Keenum, I expect multiple turnovers for the Bucs.
I played the Bucs this past week, and
that felt good.
Chicago was marching down the field on their first drive, and I was like, oh, no, what did I do? And then I refreshed my phone, and it was a pick 6 from Mike Glennon. I was happy again. So I almost pulled off the shutout. All right, guys, do you want to get
talk a little streaming quarterbacks?
Yeah, let's do that.
This is Andy stalling and trying to find a drop.
I feel like it's disappeared.
Hold. Hold.
Full stream ahead.
Now.
Jason's voice can only get so high.
You may need to stream a new host after that performance. Couldn't find it.
Brooks, are you available?
Nah.
All right,
Sorry.
we're sticking with the starter.
Did you end up checking the score, Brooks, for our dynasty matchup, me versus you? Did you end up checking
I still haven't checked.
You still haven't checked. Okay. If
Don't
you need
look.
an update, just
Eyes wide shut.
just let me know. All right. What are we looking for in a quarterback stream?
So a quarterback stream, look, this is why we've talked about you don't have to spend up at the quarterback position. Yeah, I mean, you get Tom Brady's Tom Brady. Again, his touchdowns week 2. But, I mean, he also had a terrible week 1. You have Aaron Rodgers, who's been good, but, I mean, you had to draft him in the 3rd round.
Yeah, not
Meanwhile,
Alex Smith.
Alex Smith, the #1 quarterback, was likely not drafted. But we're just so we're saying the gap between those quarterbacks is smaller than you would imagine. So we're trying to get guys in positive matchups that are likely to get you 200 to 250 passing yards and a shot at multiple touchdowns. I got him, fellas. I jumped in the dock, and I grabbed Smoking Jay Cuddy because
Congratulations.
he gets to take on the Jets. He is available in pretty much every single league format. So I think that he is a great play. The Jets are terrible. They have a bad defense. They turn the ball over on offense. And Jay Cutler has some fantastic weapons in Jarvis Landry and Devontae Parker. I think Jay Cutler is a fantastic stream this week.
Yeah, he's definitely good. I was surprised how available he was. He's pretty much almost entirely 100% not owned. My guy is available in 90% of leagues, and so far on the year, he's outdone Tom Brady, including that great week, and he's ahead of Matthew Stafford and Drew Brees and Aaron Rodgers.
He's on the road now.
Yeah, he is on the road. I'm not saying he's going to be a world beater, but Trevor Siemian has looked very good. You just brought up that Jay Cutler has good weapons. Give me Emmanuel Sanders. Give me Demaryius Thomas. Those two weapons are enough to get it done. Buffalo is not a great defense or a good team, so I think Trevor Siemian is going to be a fine play again. And what I've seen from him is just like he looks really good. I mean, he's been making moves with his arm, with his legs, adding rushing touchdowns. Almost got another one this last week. So I really like what I've seen out of Trevor Siemian. I'm not scared, and he's available everywhere.
I think what also factors into Siemian in his game script, right? Because we're trying to find bad defenses that you can exploit. Well, part of Buffalo is that their offense is so anemic that the Broncos' defense should be able to shut them down and put Siemian in very positive situations. I mean, like starting position,
field position.
Yeah, exactly. Like starting on the 40 instead of the 20 or the 25.
Right. The worry would just be that if they're able to completely shut him down, that it goes to this 100% run game, and so maybe the ceiling is a little bit capped with Siemian. But I do think he'll be valuable.
Yeah, and I do agree with you, but I think there are those out there that Buffalo hasn't given up a single passing touchdown on the entire year.
In fairness, they got Cam Newton.
Yeah, they had Cam Newton and they had Josh McCown. So that's the perspective I was trying to give people was Siemian should be able to do something there, but you're probably going to be leaning more on the touchdowns than the total yardage for Siemian this week. I'm gonna throw
this
crazy name out there.
No, I like it.
Only owned in 4% of leagues, and it's Deshaun Kaiser. Kaiser is going to, in every matchup he starts, have at least 5 rushing attempts. You get to place that on top of whatever he can do against Indianapolis this week, who has given up 300-plus yards to both of the passers that they have faced so far. And so I think that puts you in a pretty high floor situation for Deshaun Kaiser. He does have problems in the pass-catching weapons, but you saw the dependency now on DeValve and on Njoku, which I think is going to help him. You've got Duke Johnson and you have Higgins. So I think Kaiser's going to be a pretty high floor play, and he's available in 100% of the league. So if you don't want to spend any fab at all and stream a quarterback, Deshaun Kaiser is my stream of the week.
I mean, he was a top 12 guy week 1 against the Steelers, so it's not as gross as it sounds initially.
All right, I want to spend some time getting into the mailbag, answering questions from the Foot Clan. You ready, Mike?
Yep.
Mailbag.
Mailbag, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man, I did listen back through because I had to hear it from the outside perspective. I listened back through to my Bilal Powell eulogy yesterday. I was dying laughing because I
forgot about that.
You guys were just in the background, like this sputtering, dying Bilal Powell was on the ground, gasping for air. Bilal.
Oh, Bilal Powell, man.
All right, if you have a question for the podcast, go to the fantasyfootballers.com, click on the submit a question button. You can send them on in. You can also dial our voicemail hotline, 302-464-TFFB. All right, let's jump into a voicemail question to kick things off.
Hey guys, Kenny from Portland. I just wanted to know if a guy gets a pass interference called on the defense against him, who do those yards go to? That would be my question. I couldn't figure that out. So,
no one.
They go to nobody. But what's really funny about this question, I didn't know it was here. I was just talking about this on Sunday. I believe I was talking to our good buddy Jeremy about it. Like, those yards.
Right,
they should go to somebody.
They
make an impact on the game. I think
they make a huge
what
impact
you were saying.
On the game.
What you were saying wasn't that the yard should go to somebody, but like you should get some kind of bonus for getting a pass interference call or something.
That's exactly where I was going to go. If you are a wide receiver and you draw a pass interference call, you should get like a 1 point or something. I mean, it should count as like a virtual reception.
Yeah,
but you don't think that you should get anything for a 50-yard gain?
No, because you didn't catch the ball.
But your team moved 50 yards.
But you didn't catch the ball.
All right.
There's no way.
Agree to disagree on that one.
You're going to be very alone on that one, Mike.
But nobody gets the yards. Quarterback doesn't get the yards. The yards go in the stats as penalty yards.
Yeah, I feel like it's so impactful on the game. The guys who can just burn, and you completely change field position, and you didn't have to catch the ball.
But
that's how Brandon Cooks makes a living.
Yeah. If you think about it, though, Mike, there are the pass interference calls that impacted like the catch, but then there are the ones that are, they happen well away from the actual point of the catch, and then all of a sudden you're getting dragged and pulled, and guys are getting points, and I don't know. It's too hard to enforce that type of thing, and it would completely change the history books of the NFL for all of time.
Oh, no, I'm not talking about NFL. I'm just talking about fantasy football.
Oh, you weren't talking about like giving the yards to the player?
No, I'm talking about fantasy.
Now you know why I thought you were crazy.
Yeah, I would not in real life. I would not change the statistics.
Yeah, I would just give a bonus. That's what I would do.
Bonus.
All right, here's another voicemail question. This one is regarding DeMarco Murray.
Hey guys, this is Billy from Ocean Shores, Washington. My question for you is, with the issues DeMarco Murray has had for the first 2 weeks, do you think this is going to be a trend? Or do you think it's injury related? Because I heard a little bit about some sort of injury. I just wanted to know because he has a pretty tough schedule coming up, and I'm just curious how you guys think I should handle this situation. Thanks, and keep up the good work.
It is tough. I mean, like I said earlier, he's dealing with a hamstring issue that is it's a re-aggravation of the same hamstring problem he had in training camp, and you put those together with a brutal schedule that you brought up, Andy, and let's say DeMarco Murray is active this coming week. How confident are you? What would you expect? Where do you think he would end up in rankings? Is he a a top 24? Is he still a top 12? Where would you?
I'd put him in the top 24. I think the way that you have to look at that situation is, imagine Adrian Peterson in his heyday in Minnesota, and sure, you get flashy performances from what was it, Chester Rogers? Not Chester Rogers.
Taylor?
Chester Taylor back behind him or something. Like, if you have talent behind your superstar, like this team is built around DeMarco Murray. They paid him. They love him. He's the foundation of the rushing offense. And I understand the talent of Derrick Henry is amazing, right? But it's very similar in Atlanta. You have the foundation built around Devonta Freeman, all the money in Devonta Freeman. The talent is through the roof with Tevin Coleman. But if a player is healthy and he's your foundation, he will get the start, the respect, the veteran leadership. All those things are going to happen. So, again, it does not come down to usurping. It comes down to injury.
Right.
So for this week, maybe he's 20 to 24 in the rankings if he plays, because they're going to take some pressure off him. They're going to split carries. Maybe he doesn't play. Maybe he plays and he's great. I'd put him in that range this week, but I just don't want people to think that, like, he's not going to get usurped by talent.
Agreed. Completely agree with the principle, and I just said how much I like Derrick Henry. That is not going to happen. I mean, the example you bring up, there's plenty of examples. Devonta Freeman's a good one. Remember when LaDainian Tomlinson was killing it, and behind him
Michael Turner,
who was great. And when he left, he proved that he was great, but it didn't matter because you weren't the number one guy for this team.
Yeah, and I think, DeMarco Murray's 29?
Yes.
Yep.
So I think there's still there's tread on those tires.
It's 29 with a lot of touches, though.
Yeah.
A lot fewer touches than LaShawn McCoy.
Yeah. I think it'd be foolish for us. I mean, every fantasy owner has to make that decision with guys like Jordan Howard or DeMarco Murray or these situations. I think that's a foolish situation to abandon ship. And you talk about a buy low candidate, I'd buy low on DeMarco Murray.
Because
by week or 4 or 5. All right, last question. Andy in Rochester, would you rather own Kenny Golladay or Marvin Jones?
It's still Jones.
Marvin Jones for sure.
Look, the routes are smooth, but his time is not yet.
The nickname is great, but that doesn't make him better at football.
Also, Foot Clan, we got to push Kenny G hard on Twitter. JJ's Baby Strong nickname is gaining steam. It's gaining momentum on the social medias.
I got one more for you, by the way. Rob in Massachusetts got a trade offer. Eric Decker for Isaiah Crowell. Would you do it?
To get Crowell?
I would want Crowell.
I would want Crowell in that deal, yeah.
I'm still holding on to Decker because I think that there's hope, especially with what happened with Corey Davis. But Crowell is a starting running back, and those are hard to come by. And even though he's had a down couple of weeks, I made a trade offer for Crowell today. So that shows you. Hey, don't forget about Sonos. Before you leave, go to Sonos.com, grab that play base, grab the Sonos wireless speakers. You won't be disappointed. We absolutely loved it at our house, and it's a rocket sound system. And don't forget, you can get 10% off any order, $2,500 or less for any product sold on Sonos.com. That is a limited time only, can't be combined with other discounts. It's Footballers10 for the promo code Footballers10 at Sonos.com.
All right, that is it for today's show. Appreciate you tuning in. Mike, you got any final words for anybody? You doing all right over there?
I'm doing all right. I'm just checking out.
Your league?
I'm on pristine auction right now.
Makes sense.
All
right.
People think you're joking. You're not joking.
I'm not.
No.
I'm not joking.
Follow us on Twitter at the FF Baller.
Step off of my Crabtree jersey, people.
Check out playdraft.com/ballers for some fun DFS this week. A free entry. Playdraft.com/ballers.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter at the FF Ballers.